Tunnels and craters in the heart of the French coalfield hide horrors from the First World War.
It's got a full foot in there.
Nearly 60,000 British soldiers were left dead, wounded or missing here in a hellish battle that moved underground.
There you are, folks. That's the place of battle.
It was one of the largest battles in world history. Now it is largely forgotten. No Man's Land, a team of archaeologists, historians and forensic experts are here to reclaim that history, revealing the carnage of war.
Oh, that is a pencil. That's a pencil. We have a pocketbook and a pencil.
Honoring and identifying the fallen, like the young musician serving in the same regiment as a corporal named Adolf Hitler.
It would have been a very different world if it had been Hitler killed and not Leopold.
Andy Robertshaw is a member of No Man's Land. He's a military historian at Britain's National Army Museum and usually leaves the digging to the archaeologists on the team.
There's metal down here too. There's something organic down there. Yeah, it's like timber.
I was working just in the dugout entrance a couple of minutes ago, and we were bringing out some rounds. We'd taken out 2 or 3. There were some tin cans, and I cut into something and leant down to pick it up, and realised what I'd actually done was to hit this, which is a person's lower jaw.
It's not good after steak, is it?
I never thought. There's a full top set there.
Yeah, I've just got a couple of teeth.
The team was formed to excavate the complex trench systems of the First World War. But in doing so, they sometimes dig up the dead of those battles. At Loos, in northern France, they're excavating the lip of an enormous crater, a landscape created by the forces of war. The human remains Andy's found look like they're in an exploded dugout, where soldiers would shelter from battle.
If this is a dugout, then it may well be that these individuals on their way out and they've been blown back down the stairs and possibly even buried alive, for all we know. Unpleasant, whichever way you look at it. But the danger is, of course, if this is a dugout and they were coming out, there could be a few more behind them still.
Luke Barber is a forensic archaeologist usually found working crime scenes with the police.
And that's a skull. We know we've got one skull over there. That was the one we're aiming for. Peeling back, the soil has peeled off onto this, and that looks like another skull to me. But we've established there's at least 2 individuals here at the moment. He's seen the light of day for the first time in 90 years, and you can see there's his eye sockets. One there, and one there. I might do it.
Objects found near to human remains hold clues about identity. In this case, a simple button determines nationality.
It's only a fairly pathetic little white metal button, but that is actually a fairly crucial piece of evidence early on, because that's suggesting to us very strongly that these are Germans.
This landscape bore witness to one of the bloodiest battles of the Great War. The Battle of Loos, autumn 1915, the Big Push. The Allies attempt to break through the German front line and force fighting out of the trenches and back into the open. The German front stretched for 350 miles, from the North Sea to Switzerland. Its high ramparts guarded round the clock by millions of men. But at Loos, there were just 11,000 German soldiers defending an elevated stronghold, outnumbered 7 to 1, facing an attacking force of over 75,000. But poor communications, bad weather and scarce ammunition left the British with almost 60,000 casualties. Just 50 yards from the German dugout, there's evidence of soldiers literally blown to pieces in a trench that was likely British.
The boot has laces. The Germans, for most of the war, used unlaced jack boots. So a laced boot is indicating that it's most likely a British or Commonwealth soldier.
This soldier was British.
He's got a full foot in there. You look at the knot, and I'm touching his laces, and I'll say the last time someone was touching his laces was 90 odd years ago when this chap was doing up his boots for the last time. And it's little things like that, silly little things sometimes, but they're the ones that really get you the most. He's probably got relatives in England somewhere. Someone's sitting back in England totally unawares that we've just taken out one of their relatives.
The next day quickly turns to rain, bad news for excavation. But there's worse to come. The team arrives to the news that their site has been looted overnight. Scavengers have scoured the no man's land dig site, robbing the unmarked grave, stripping it of artifacts. It has never happened to the team before, and they're devastated.
People have come with metal detectors. They've gone over the trench, they focused on the metal objects, and they dug them up. This is the whole point about what we do. Here we've got the body of a soldier. The identifying elements are almost, without question, going to be in metal. When people come and dig holes like this, they're just looking for the metal. They're looking for saleable items, particular badges. Badges, of course, are what identify soldiers. So in this case, if there was any identification of material that we didn't pick up last night, it's completely gone.
What we've got here is an example of looting that does more damage than you can just see. It's not just a matter of you take away a few bits of metal. You're actually taking away the means of identification. Minister O'Connor, the American anthropologist, said it's the equivalent of killing a man twice. And I find it incredible anybody could do that to another human being.
I just think for the sake of a few pounds, and that's all these objects get, it's a few pounds, that people will totally disregard these soldiers over here, and they'll just rip through them for the sake of a few buttons and a cap badge, which is in pretty manky condition anyway. And you can buy brand, in good condition for about £5 or £6 for a cap badge, and you think they'll strip this chap of his identity for the sake of £5, £10, which is a couple of beers down the pub. And this is this one chance this person has to be identified. I'd quite happily go and buy them some new cap badges if they leave our trench alone.
But the looters also left something behind.
We found it this morning when we turned up.
So
It's probably out one of the big holes that they dug. It's a live Stokes.
okay.
It's not been fired. Fuse is still in the end.
They find a Stokes mortar bomb discarded by the looters. It's live, a deadly weapon packed with high explosives or chemicals.
So what do these things contain?
Anything phosgene, mustard, chlorine. You don't actually know unless you could actually see the markings on them, but in this sort of state, you just treat everything as potentially lethal.
Quite a risk to take for a few euros worth of metal then.
Just a bit, yeah. If that had gone, you'd have ended up with how many bodies in the trench this morning?
Okay, well you deal with it. Do you need us to move?
Yeah, can you vanish for 10 minutes?
Which way's the wind blowing? That way, everybody that way while he moves smoothly.
The looters were lucky to leave the scene alive, and Bill Shuttleworth's job is to put the bomb in a safe place until the authorities come and take it away. Just 50 yards away is the German dugout, and it's dead. The team turn their energies to this site, and their efforts soon pay off. Soldiers lying close to where they fell in the Great War. Sensing the scale of what they are uncovering and fearful of looters returning, the team works into the night.
Uh-oh. What's wrong? Uh-oh. Well, she wouldn't do that. Uh-oh.
What do you see, John?
Well, we've got a skull. Well, we know we've got 3 now.
Another dead soldier, and sandwiched between the remains, an incredible find, the clothing and possessions of one of the men.
What we've got basically is pieces of textile. I don't know. I think this is actually uniform. Oh, look, it's German. He's got red piping on the shoulder board. I can see various corroded things. This is the sort of thing that can be a good indicator of who this casualty was and where he's from, because each unit will have different forms of decoration.
It's going to be a long night. Every item pulled from the trenches is sent to the forensic lab at University College London for intensive analysis.
First time we received this object, we were very interested in it because of the human aspect. We're going to help people who could have been looking for their family. This is very rewarding for us. We don't have the chance to do this kind of work very often.
We're always really sort of excited to see what the conservation people have actually managed to extract from that evidence. And you would never believe what they can normally extract from it, because often it just looks like just a wad of wet paper. But sometimes they can really get some results, and sometimes that can mean the difference between an identification and not.
On the bottoms there is a lion motif.
Oh yeah, they're really clear. I thought I saw lines when we dug them up, but it's only now I can see them really clearly. And that would be probably Bavarian. So they have the Bavarian line, so that rather suggests that this is actually Bavarian tunic. So there's at least the remains of 3 tunics, which by the looks of it are all Bavarian, between those 2 bodies. The other thing that was particularly interesting was the epaulets. When I initially got the material out to send up to Renata, I could see what looked like clear stitching. It looked to me like a 16 actually on the epaulette, but I wanted to see what the conservation have actually done with that. But there was also a button which will show the company number, which I couldn't actually see. So I'm hoping that Renata's actually managed to clean that up and we can get some results of that, which would be great. So look at these, all in superb condition.
Yeah,
oh, wow, this
is quite well.
This is the epaulette.
Yeah, that's very interesting actually, because we uncovered number 16 here. It was embroidered, but on the bottoms it doesn't say 16.
The 16 would be for the 16th Reserve Infantry Regiment.
Okay.
Probably. So that's the regiment.
The soldier who wore these clothes belonged to the 16th Reserve Infantry Regiment from Bavaria in Germany. The very first regiment in which Adolf Hitler was also serving as a junior soldier in the First World War. The regiment is a good starting point, but it numbered a couple of thousand men.
Well, you've got big pieces of chalk.
More evidence is needed to identify the bodies at the site. When the soldiers died in the autumn of 1915, Loos was at the center of an industrial landscape, surrounded by coal mines and slag heaps, where mining continued as the fighting raged. But the constant shelling and explosions tore up the ground, making this territory highly dangerous and unstable.
Once he's pulled the spoil away, you can have another look.
Down there, we've either got a dugout of some sort, or possibly an entrance to a tunnel system. But it's going to be something that we probably can't explore because it's so very unsafe.
The The whole area was the scene of heavy crater fighting, a feature of the war in 1915. Rat runs of trenches were enhanced by the ancient art of mining. German and British troops both mined intensively, driving networks of tunnels deep under their enemies' lines, planting explosives and blowing them up. A hellhole of carnage and chaos.
We're on the edge of the biggest crater that's left, and it probably is the biggest one in the redoubt. You can see behind me it drops away pretty sheer. And the photos we've got of pictures of terraces all the way down, sandbags, holes driven into the side. It's fairly soft, so you can cut in a little hole. Oh, you get a completely different view from down here.
David Kenyon and John Price are archaeologists and specialists in the Great War. The crater they're in was formed by a number of explosions, each one fueled by thousands of pounds of a special explosive called ammonal that was designed to blast Earth high into the air.
Some of these tunnels that they've dug into the side of the thing are deliberately listening posts. You have a guy in there with, in the early days they've got a doctor's stethoscope that they put against the chalk. As time goes on they have electric microphones and things, but there's posts dug out all around here listening intently for the sound of the scraping of the guys tunnelling in from the other side. And the colloquial saying is that so long as you can hear them scraping, you're fine. Yeah. The moment the scraping stops is when they've laid the charge and they've left. And you imagine every time that goes up, all those little bunkers and dugouts and all the equipment and all the men that's in there all goes up, gets mixed up, comes down, whereupon they start the process again of digging a fresh layer of positions and things. So they're literally digging through the last guys that were there.
It was an underground war that created a human soup, soldiers blown to bits in a churning sea of earth.
It's a common motif, the idea of limb bones sticking out of the trench, partly because it's something that sticks in their mind, but also because it's a hazard in a trench to have something stick out. So you've got to cut it off, and this motif of soldiers being leery of cutting off limbs sticking out and being told just do it.
You've got one complete finger there, another one there, another one there, another one there. But that's part of the hand actually. That's. I think this bone. I think that one comes from here.
Partial remains make identifications difficult, and it's too dangerous for the team to excavate in the tunnels. But the German dugout is still surrendering its secrets.
Not entirely sure what this is, but it's a nice leather case with wooden edging to it.
Martin Brown is an archaeologist with the Ministry of Defence in Britain. War sites are his specialty.
And there's cloth possibly from the uniform. Oh, that is a pencil. That's a pencil. We have a pocketbook and a pencil. That's absolutely stunning. To get what I suppose is a First World War file of facts, for want of a better analogy. Pocketbook, pencil, various other bits and pieces in there. And then very, very carefully when we've done this, I want you to write on the bag in large letters UCL, because this is something that the conservators at UCL are really definitely going to want to see.
So this was another very interesting object we received, a book.
So is this sort of like a soul book?
Yeah,
it's like a pay book for the soldier.
Book.
Right, excellent.
Yeah. And one of the first pages we uncovered was this one. Where
because it's actually really clear, isn't it? I mean, you can see the printed stuff, but does it say Mullah?
It's a signature.
Do you think that's our man, Mullah?
This was actually the officer who signed some of his payments.
Signed for the payments and stuff.
Yeah.
That's a soldier, isn't it?
However, we persevered, and then we recovered the first page of the book. The third line here, you can read it under the microscope very clearly. It's 20th October 92.
Well, that's actually a good lead to go on if we've got the man's birthday. Good.
Yeah.
October the 20th, 1892. They know when our German soldier was born, have an idea of when he died. Now they need a name.
There's what I thought was a piece of uniform here because it's got textile on it, but just in turning it back, it turns out to be another book, and there are printed words on the page again in German. That's going to have to come out and again be very carefully conserved. I really shouldn't have been opening it like that, but it was worth it to see what it was. Got it. Perfect. It might be something very, very mundane and very run-of-the-mill. Alternatively, it might give us an insight into who he is. It might give us even an identity, so we shall see.
So this was one of the most exciting objects. We received another book that was also preserved very well, and turns out that this is a soldier's songbook. And
excellent.
this is,
you can even see the picture of the soldier, and he's got a horse there.
Yeah,
it's really quite sweet, isn't it?
It's very sweet. But the most interesting thing about this book actually is not the book itself, but what was in the book. This person received a postcard, and he put the postcard in there.
Yeah.
And we were fortunate enough to be able to recover this postcard, and we have the postcard here.
Yeah.
And guess what?
What? It's not to Muller, is it?
No.
No?
Sorry, it's not Müller. It's much better than that.
All right.
Well, you can see parts of the name on the screen there. Can you see
yes,
it?
Absolutely.
Can you tell me what you see? Because I know.
Yeah, I can see it. L-E-O.
Yeah.
Leo.
Yeah.
Leo P. Leopold. Is it Leopold?
Yeah, that's his first name. So then there is Leopold.
And there's I can see a big rip in the postcards.
Yeah, but then we
There's
have
an R.
the first 4 letters of the family name. We were able to recognize.
So R-O. Is that a T?
Yeah.
And an H.
Yeah, brilliant.
Ross.
The last letter we cannot.
Is that an A or a U? Or?
It could be either. I don't know. We don't want to assert this one. It's not really clear.
Leopold Roth something. That's a good
Very
start.
likely. That's yeah. That's
and we've got hopefully his birthday from the book.
A songbook that hid a postcard with a partial name. The team already have the man's regiment and birth date. Using military archives, they now quickly uncover his identity. A soldier born in Munich who died around the time of his 23rd birthday, whose name was Leopold Rothemel. Munich, southern Germany, the heart of Bavaria, the center of culture in pre-war Europe that would become the birthplace of the Nazis. Andy Robertshaw has come to examine Leopold's war records.
We know a little bit about him, but we just need anything that you can give us. It will be very, very useful. And I'm told you might have some very nice stuff for us.
Wir jetzt nachsehen müssen in der Stammrolle, in der sogenannten Stammrolle.
So this is the role in which they all signed in. That's right.
Ja,
so
alle Soldaten der Kompanie, sie Leopold Rothärmel.
Rothemel. Yeah.
Mit allen Eingaben.
That's his date of birth then.
Also 20.10.1892 geboren in München.
Right.
Hier. Sein Beruf.
His profession. Was war denn sein Beruf?
Sein Beruf ist Konzertmeister.
Concertmeister.
Also Musiker.
Yes.
Ausgebildeter Musiker an einer Musikhochschule.
That's incredible.
Leopold was a concertmeister, a musician. But as one mystery unravels, another one is growing.
This is clearly observable in this, even though...
No Man's Land no longer believes they've found the victims of a dugout collapse. The unearthed skeletons would have been scattered. So what have they found?
Here and here, we've got buttons which are more diagnostic of shirts. So unless we can think of a reason why you would have that kind of button down your leg, and it's not impossible, And what these are, we're not sure yet.
The team work out that the buttons are fasteners on a ground sheet.
Okay, so with the body and these buttons down by the legs, I guess we're looking at a deliberate burial for this one, because we've got previous experience of them picking up a body in a Zelt barn and then laying it down. But it's certainly looking like he's not just fallen, he's been buried.
The fact you've got things buried with them might mean they're chums who buried them, because they haven't been looted, and all armies loot.
When you know, an animal or a human dies, it's not usually very long before flies sniff out the carcass and start laying eggs on it, which obviously then turn into maggots. And once they've had their feast and are ready to change into flies, they'll turn into chrysalis for a while. And you get most fly activity obviously in the summer, as we know. So if this body had been lying around in the summer for any length of time, I'd expect to see the remains of maggots, but I haven't seen any here yet at all. So it either suggests that possibly they got buried quite quickly, so they weren't lying around too long. Come on, mate, you're coming out now. There you go. He's finally out.
Luke's observations, coupled with regimental records, place Leopold's death in the autumn of 1915, at the end of the Battle of Loos.
What's next? What we have here are a list of all the actual battles and skirmishes which Leopold was involved in.
And they are?
So here on the 17th of May until the 23rd of July, 1915, there's a battle at La Bassée and Arras.
Leopold joined his unit in May 1915. In his first 3 months, the unit is involved in a series of high-profile battles and sorties, including a daring night raid. He is rewarded for his bravery and leadership.
And then here we have medals and other marks and promotions.
Yeah.
And it says here that on the 5th of July 1915, he actually got the Eisernerkreuz, the Iron Cross second class.
Okay, well, the uniform found between the two bodies, there was an Iron Cross ribbon, but pinned on, not sewn on. That person hadn't had it very long, he hadn't even had time to sew it on, and it was still in place on that buttonhole.
This is the one with the Iron Cross ribbon.
Wow, that's come up really well, hasn't it?
Yeah, this one preserved really well. It's amazing, all the colors. At the tip of the ribbon here, there is another kind of corrosion product, probably from iron.
Yeah, that would be probably a safety pin, something like that.
Okay.
Just pinning the Iron Cross ribbon to the tunic. That's brilliant.
The Iron Cross, an award also given to the young Hitler. Leopold Rothermel's Iron Cross is not found, but it wasn't unusual for soldiers to send their precious medals back to families at home, wearing just the ribbons into battle. But another cross of sorts is discovered with Leopold's possessions.
Okay, look at this in his pocket. And it's some kind of brass thing, a locket maybe. It's the sort of thing that we can take back to a lab and sort out sometimes. So that's good.
This is the trench art that we found in one of the lower bodies. Yeah, it's a French bullet in the middle and 2 British bullets crossed, I knew that much. But he's deliberately chosen a French and 2 British bullets to make this piece of little trench art. He hasn't chosen German bullets to do it. So it's almost like a good luck thing. If you've actually got 2 British bullets and a French one, then maybe hopefully you've already got the bullets that are going to be coming towards you. It's like, you know, that you're already wearing the bullets. So that's quite sweet, really.
The Great War saw trench art produced on a massive scale. Trench life was by turns dangerous and bleak, and men's creations spoke both to luck and religious beliefs. Whether a charm or religious reminder, Leopold came from a Catholic family. And Andy is looking for evidence in the famous Munich church, the Frauenkirche.
There we are, 1914, 1915. Frankreich, France, Rothermel, Otto, wrong person. Oh, that's April anyway. Frankreich, France again, Rothermel. Leopold. There he is. France, Rothermel, Leopold, and the date, along with a few other men in the same battle. Incredible. And funny to think that his family must have come here to have a look at this as well. Seeing him here like this, on this great list of the dead, I suppose for the family it must have been the only closure they ever had. They never had the chance to visit a grave. This is the best they would have had, and this is the closest they must have got to being able to accept that he wasn't going to come home.
For the Rothermel family, Leopold was not the only child who did not return. Their other son, Otto, younger than Leopold, had been killed in France just 6 months earlier. Martin Brown is also in Munich, but while Andy builds a picture of Leopold, Martin is here to try and find living relatives.
At some point during the summer of 1915, Leopold received a postcard. And I don't imagine for one moment that having looked at it, read it, and then put it away in his pocket for safekeeping, he realised the huge significance it was going to have. Because, of course, on the back, it had surviving a fragment of his name. Unfortunately, we'll never know who sent that postcard, because so much of the writing was obliterated. But there are some obvious choices. His immediate family, his parents, his sisters are living in Munich, and they would have wanted to remain in contact with Leopold while he was away at the war.
The postcard was sent to Leopold sometime in the summer of 1915, shortly after his younger brother's death. Perhaps it was breaking bad news.
The postcard I've chosen shows the area of Munich where we're standing, but more importantly, it shows the area of Munich where the Rothermel family lived.
The Rothermel family was solid working class. Records show that his father, also named Leopold, was a plumber. His mother Emma ran a corner shop. The couple had 4 daughters before Leopold came along, followed by Otto. They lived in the center of Munich, moving every couple of years from one rented home to another. Martin is looking for their last known address.
Here we are. This is the right street, this is where they lived. So all I have to do now is find number 32, and we should be able to see where they lived.
But Martin never gets to see where they lived. The family home was bombed in the Second World War. The family possibly killed. A dead end. But the team have a more perplexing problem. Leopold's clothing and possessions were found sandwiched between the skeletal remains of 2 soldiers named bodies 12 and 13. So which one was he? To identify Leopold Rothermel's skeletal remains, forensic expert Luke Barber has enlisted the help of bone specialist Marit van den Bruiner.
We have a name associated with one of these 2 bodies, Leopold, and we've got that from the remains in the tunic. And what we're hoping is that you may be able to actually tell us which one is Leopold based on the skeletal remains.
Let's look at the skull.
Body 12 has a dramatic head injury, a very specific wound.
Quite excited over.
Yeah.
When we excavated body 12, We noticed that in the right temple there was a hole which we thought was a wound. I could see some of it looked like a fresh break, but I wasn't really quite sure. And what I wanted Merit to look at is, in her professional capacity, was to actually look at that hole and tell me whether that was something that may have happened after death or recently, or whether it's something that may have actually been the fatal blow.
Let me look here. This can be of something, from something sharp. No?
Yeah, it could be, couldn't it? It does look like the bone's been sliced.
Yeah.
So it could well be a shell splinter.
That's possible.
Something like that.
That would be possible.
What about body 13?
Let's look over there.
We'll have to think about this.
Yeah. So let's try the same, but this one is much more...
Badly decomposed, isn't it?
Yes.
Especially the top.
Especially the top.
The leg's actually rather good. The legs and feet, but the whole upper half is awful condition.
Yeah, but it depends here on the environment.
Body 13's injury is less conclusive, but the soldier is missing some of his upper body. So did Leopold die from a head wound, like body 12, or an injury to his stomach or chest? At the War Archives, Andy Robertshaw is looking for any information he can get that might put flesh on Leopold's bones.
Is there anything else on his status as a musician in the army?
I did find out some more in one of the regimental diaries, which was written after the First World War.
Yeah.
I'll just get it.
Is that one there?
That's one I made earlier.
And what's it say?
It says, in the August of 1915, the whole of 9th Company all of a sudden becomes very musical.
Oh, yes.
The 17-year-old Rotemel, who is also an artist on the piano and the violin, organises the music corps.
Cool. That's incredible. So that's him. He's actually mentioned, even though he no rank. He obviously stood out, didn't he?
Yes.
I mean, both as a soldier and also as a musician.
Yeah.
Which is not bad going, isn't it, in his first few months of soldiering? Do so much.
Yeah, a romantic war hero.
Yeah.
Given that Munich has this reputation for respecting and honouring its musicians, I suspect that the young lad walking around here carrying his violin case on his way to concerts was quite a well-known figure.
Leopold's family home was bombed in the Second World War, and so too was the building where he trained as a musician. But the school itself lives on. Now occupying the office that belonged to Hitler when he rose to power with the Nazis. Leopold was allowed to continue his studies at this school for 2 years after being conscripted, because he was considered so gifted.
I found his name in this old report, and you see, this is the first time he appears here. It was an honor to get this place, and if you were good enough, you got a job.
What was his job as a concertmeister?
The concertmeister is the first violin in the orchestra, and so he got this very important job in this orchestra. He must have been very good, yes.
We found in Leopold's pocket a partly preserved music book, and we've been able to get another copy of the same, and that's it. Alte und neue Soldatenlieder.
Yes.
Perhaps there are things in there that are familiar and that you could...
Yes, it's a book with songs, Christian songs. That's a very patriotic song, Die Wacht am Rhein. Then our national hymn. That's a marching song.
Okay.
Yes. That's a very famous song, and Elvis Presley was singing it.
What's this one?
Yes, when he left Germany after his military career here, he was making a song where he was singing muss sie denn zum Städtele hinaus.
Fantastic. So we have, no one would expect it, but we've got a connection between Leopold Rothamel and Elvis Presley. Oh dear.
Leopold's songbook preserved the postcard that named him. But to identify the remains, they must discover how Leopold actually died.
The name strode through the red is usually an indication that the person was killed in action, deceased. And he fell?
Durch, das ist eine Abkürzung GG und BA steht für Bauch.
He was killed by a rifle shot in the stomach.
Das überrascht Sie?
We had a problem because the skeletons, there are two skeletons that could have been him. One was number 12 and one was number 13 in our list. Right. Those two, one of them, number 12, had a clear shell fragment wound to the head. Because he wasn't wearing his uniform, it was between them. We couldn't distinguish between number 12 and number 13. So number 12 is not our man. It's number 13, the man underneath. And all the items found with him then, the pay book and everything else makes complete sense. Our man is definitely the man down. It's definitely number 13. He died from a stomach wound caused by a gunshot. So no head injury at all. So that was what the cause of death was, gunshot wound stomach. So we can definitely say it's number 13.
No Man's Land have identified the remains of Leopold Rothamel.
Leopold Rothamel and his comrades from number 9 Company of the 16th Bavarian Reserve Regiment arrived by train on the 2nd of October. Next morning at 1:30, they're led by guides up towards the position of the Hohenzollern Redoubts, and they report that they're in position by 5:30. At 8 a.m, the attack begins on the position held by the 2nd Battalion of the Cheshire Regiments. Leopold Rothamel and his comrades go over the top with rifle and grenade. In the next 25 minutes, the British are pushed out and the Germans are totally successful. The position has been cleared of the enemy. But Leopold Rothamel's not there to share in the victory. He's amongst the fallen.
Also quasi aus der Luft. Ja, wenn ich ihn vorher hinlege, habe ich sowas. Und dann Crescendo.
I was sitting listening to it and had an immediate flashback. The distinct memory of digging up Leopold, and it was very strange and really quite affecting, and it really does drag home and force home about this being about people.
His company was so good, they were chosen for special duties. Sadly, it was those special duties that actually led to his death. But I'm sure he would have been proud to be part of one of the best units within the German army at that time, the forerunner of what later on will be known as the Stormtroopers. It's a strange irony, isn't it, that both Leopold Rothamel and Adolf Hitler were members of the same 16th Bavarian Reserve Regiment, and both of them were artists, one with a proven record for Leopold, one with aspirations, perhaps never quite proven for Hitler. I can only assume it would have been a very different world if it had been Hitler killed and not Leopold. I suppose we could only assume it would have been a better world.
Leopold Rothermel, one of the fallen, a soldier who now has a name and a resting place.
It's an end of quite a long journey. I only wish I knew as much about the other people that we found, but they will remain the unknown, and that's my regret, that we don't know who they all are.
No Man's Land was formed to reclaim the history of the Great War and to honour its dead, and by doing so ensure that the generations who follow will never forget. That children like Andy Robertshaw's daughter Lily will respect and remember the fallen. Soldiers, enemies or allies, united in death.